Bruchim Abba B'Shem Hashem B'Shem Irgin Shirtor. I'd like to welcome everyone to today's shir from Rabbi Yaakov Shlita on Hefsek in between washing and Hamotzi. To have the great seudah of sponsoring a shir, call Irgin Shirtor 718-851-8651 or email ist@yeshivanet.com. Rabbi Smith.
There was a family waiting for the last child to finish washing, like by the seudah, Kederech Ha'olam, there's always one that's late. And Lamaisa, someone spoke out. It wasn't, if he's yelling at the child to hurry up, maybe it's considered Tzorech and netila. But he didn't, it wasn't, he spoke out, Stam Dvarim B'Teilim. And then there was a question, what does he do? Do you have to wash over? Do you make another bracha? And it was, no one could talk, obviously, so it was a little challenging. What taka do you do if someone spoke out after netilas yadayim, he dried his hand before hamotzi? Question number 2, it was in the Geir to us, and we had a big camp, we have a few hundred b'nei Torah, and even all the sinks that you have 10 or 12 sinks is not enough for so many people. The question is, could you go to the bunkhouse, to the bungalow, wash in a different room, different building, and come back and make a hamotzi in the dining room? We're having sukkah is coming up. Can you wash in the house and make the hamotzi in the sukkah? Question number 3, while you're waiting for everybody to finish washing, can you prepare the fish and put the chrein and take a dip, put it onto your plate? Are you allowed to do a maisa in between the netilas yadayim and hamotzi? And the 4th question, which seems to be unavoidable, what do you do about the long wait till people finish, till people come? Is it a hefsek when it exceeds a certain amount at a certain time period? Now you notice we have 4 different questions because it's really 4 different parts of today's sugya. Between the netilas yadayim, in other words, you washed, you made a bracha, you dried your hands, you're waiting for a hamotzi. Is dibur a hefsek? Is shini makom halicha a hefsek? Is maisa doing something, preparing the salad, setting the table? And it's just the passing of time, maybe that's a hefsek. Or typically when you have 4 choices, what's the right answer? None of the above. Maybe we're going to prove today that none are really a hefsek. The main problem would be hesech hadas. So let's learn the sugya. Our derech ways is to start from the sugya. Let's see if we can find the Gemara. But the truth is, we could very reasonably assume that there is no hefsek between the netilas yadayim and hamotzi. Now let me explain. If you make a bracha on the challah, and before you ate, you spoke out, that's a hefsek. Because the hefsek is like a brick wall between the bracha and the achila. You made a bracha on a mitzvah, and before you did the mitzvah, you spoke out. Again, that's a hefsek between the bracha and the mitzvah. But in our case, you have 2 different activities. You wash your hands, and you made the bracha, and you dried you finished the netila. Now you're starting phase 2 hamotzi. Who said there's a hefsek? I'll give you a beautiful mashal. Let's talk about the time when Tfilas Ezra, when a person could not daven when he was tamei. So he had to go to the mikveh. So after he went to the mikveh, he's tar. Is there halacha you can't talk before you daven? There's a mitzvah to hachana for tefillah, and then you daven. Why can we look at it that netilas yadayim is an hachana for hamotzi? But it's 2 separate mitzvahs. And again, I understand, after washing before the bracha, or making a hamotzi before eating is a hefsek because it's one package. Maybe between the netila and hamotzi is like between the mikveh and the davening. And we could find a source for this. The Gemara in Brachas Daf Mem Beis Shloisha Tekifas. There are 3 things that have to be right away. Take of l'smicha shchita, take of l'geula tefillah, we know every day by davening, take of netilas yadayim bracha. Oh, what does netilas yadayim mean? Washing. What does bracha mean? L'chayra hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Isn't this a wonderful makar for our question? Well, you note it did not say it's a hefsek. There's a ma'ila of takef, but we do see it has to be together, right? But the emphasis is it's not compelling. First of all, you know what maybe bracha means? After you wash, you make the bracha netilas yadayim. But the real pshat, both Rashi and Tosfos say, Takef netila means after mayim achronim, you better bench. And we'll soon see that's a whole simon kuf bayalef in Arachayim. Rashi and Tosfos learned beferish that the Gemara is talking about after you wash mayim achronim, don't talk, bench immediately. So here we have a perfect makar fakert. Why did the Gemara say Takef netila bracha is going on the seudah? Maybe, like we suggested, there is no problem of hefsek between washing and hamotzi. And indeed, the Torah in our simon today, our simon is Kuf Samach Vav. The Torah quotes Rabbi Yoel, one of the Rishonim, and then he adds that's a shita, also the shita of the Rambam and the Rif, that there is no problem of talking in between the Yadayim and hamotzi. It's based on this Gemara that it's only mayim achronim. Now, the Torah does stress that talking is not considered hesech hadas. Now, it seems like he's saying, if you're Masiach das, then it's a problem even between the Yadayim and hamotzi. Why? That I understand. Because if you washed, and then you're Masiach das from the netila, so you lost the netila. You have to wash over. It's like someone that went to the bathroom in the middle of the seudah has to wash over. So the only problem, according to the Torah, according to Rabbi Yoel, Rambam and Rif, is only if you are Masiach das. And that we find in the Shulchan Aruch, Siman Kufay and Sif Aleph, Hesech Hadas passes netila. You have to realize that the three big Rishonim that halach is based on, Kayudua, is the Rambam, the Rif, and the Rosh. And here two of the three hold there's no problem. However, there's a Yerushalmi. The Yerushalmi is in Brachas Aleph Aleph. Kol mishu toikef netilas yadayim bracha. Whoever makes this tkifus, and that's the word we're going to use today, taikef, taf yud chaf fei, ein asat mekatrik ba'oisi seudah. If you do it right, nothing will happen during the seudah. Chasham, he won't choke on a food stuck in his throat. He won't swallow a bone. Now, how do you teach that? Ein asad makachik ba'oisi seudah. Obviously, what does the bracha in this context of Yishalmi mean? It has to be washing. Bracha means hamotzi lechem and aretz. Because had it been benching, so you can't look back and say it's going to be a skula. So now we see l'chayra based on Yishalmi, there is a makar not to be mafsik between the tilas yadayim and hamotzi. But the pella is also a bavli. The Gemara in Brachas Nun Beis Amid Beis explains that Beis Hillel holds before you wash. See, in those days they couldn't drink the wine as it was. It was called mazigas yayin. It was a pretty difficult, pretty challenging activity. You had to add hot water and mix it just the right amount. So Beis Hillel said before you wash, and you have to. Yes, that was when they made kiddush. Then you washed first, and then you would make the guffin. But the mezigas hakois makes you do it before you wash. Why? Because if you wash and then you start with the mezigas hakois, you violated takef the netila seudah. So this is as clear as day. First of all, he's talking about washing. Second of all, he calls it seudah. So we have a bavli in Nun Beis that there is din of takef. Zok the Torah, same Torah, after he quotes the Rif and Rambam, there's no problem. But my father was makbid, and the source is the Rishalmi, takef l'netila bracha. So now we see a beautiful picture of our question. There are three sources. Brachas Membeis is going on mayim achronim. Yushalmi is talking about taka mayim rishonim, and you get a skula, a bracha. And now we also have brachas nun beis amid beis. There is a halachic problem with losing the kifus. How do we paskin? So this should be simple. The Shulchan Aruch Kuf Samach Vav Sif Aleph, he's very indecisive. Yesh oimrim the ein tzarech lizar milei hefsek. You don't have to worry about a hefsek between Tizayim and Hamotzi. But yesh oimrim the tzarech lizar, the toiv lizar. Now, this is very consistent with the attitude of the Mechaber. He took two of the three Rishonim and paskin accordingly. In this case, you have a Rif and the Rambam. Why did he add toiv li zoher? Yishalmi. It's not a machlokes. So la'alacha, there's no problem. Toiv li zoher, that's the Yishalmi. What's noteworthy is the Beis Yosef says that the Yishalmi seems to indicate you should be careful. Zok the Darkei Moshe, that's the Ramah on that Beis Yosef. Why do you only quote the Yishalmi? Why did you leave out the Bavli in Brachis Membeis? And I believe that's why the Ramah was more machba than the Mechaba. Because the Mechaba had in mind the Yishalmi, so it's a skula. But the Ramah says, on this Mechaba, Im Shoka de Hila Chav Beis Amma, if you waited the time span of Chav Beis Amma, which we'll soon see is probably 16 seconds, Mikri Hefsek. So it's a beautiful Shlishitasam. The Beis Yosef and the Darkei Moshe, and in Shulchan Aruch, the Mechaba versus the Ramah. So in Yanenu, for us, we have a Bavli and a Yishalmi, not to be mafsik between bracha and between the netila and the bracha. It's interesting, the Beragoyla, he says, Turmi Yishalmi, Ulaniyas Daiti, it's a Bavli in brachas nun beis and beis. I don't know why he didn't mention that, really, the Darkei Moshe points that out. Now, to me, the Chiddush Pella was that I saw the Sefer Hilchas Yoim Yoim. He writes the minig of Teimonim. They go with the Rambam strictly. After they finish washing, they talk, but they sit with their hands shluvim zeh b'zeh to make a heka, not to be masiach das. Like some people, when they talk with tefillin, they grab their tefillin. So they go. There's no problem with talking, but hesach hadas. So they make a sort of a shmira, not the Masiach das. Now, but I don't understand why weren't they concerned about the skula? Because even the Mechaba agrees, Toiv li zoher, because you have the skula so that it won't be nizoik. But we definitely see, returning to our Chakira, is there a problem of being mafsik between the netilas yadayim and hamotzi? The answer is, and listen to this, no one holds there's an issa hefsek. Even the Ramah was saying it because of the din of Takef. And we'll soon see Takef is lachatchila. No one holds there's a din of Hefsek. We, Ashkenazim, and even Svardim, try to make it Takef to be Zoicha to the skula that there's something not Makatrik. And this gives much more meaning to a beautiful Noid Yehuda in the Jewish Atzlach, Chelik Dalet, Perek Dalet, Simon Chav Beis. The Tzlach writes, I see very often, even the Lomdim, when the Tzlach calls someone a Lamdin, he's a Lamdin, that they sit by a seudah, and they are very careful, they don't talk between the netilas yadayim and hamotzi. They're very makbid, okay? But after they wash, before they make the bracha and netilas yadayim, they do talk. So to know to be who, then they're making a terrible mistake. Because after the netilas yadayim, before hamotzi, is only a hiddur. But after the netilas yadayim, before you make the bracha netilas yadayim, is the worst hefsek. So this gives more meaning to Noid Yehuda, because we look at it when you're waiting for the hamotzi, you're not allowed to talk. That's a hiddur. But after you wash, how are you not allowed to talk? People wash one hand, then they're talking. Also wrong. You have to make the bracha right after the netila. But in Yonenu, we see definitely between the netilas yadayim and hamotzi is a maila, but no more than a maila. So now let's apply this lamaisa. Let's start with the shaila we began. Someone washed, made the bracha, dried his hands, waiting patiently to make hamotzi, and he spoke out. So until today, we think, oh, if it's a hefsek, not only you don't have to, don't make another bracha, but you don't have to wash over even. The netila that you made is perfect. The fact that you spoke out, you lose the takeif, you lose a skula. No, okay? But it doesn't pass the netila unless there was a hesach hadas. And the netila remains unaffected. Now, I want to make a point. The Ramah says if you pause more than 16 seconds, mikri hefsek. Oh, maybe the Ramah holds it's a hefsek, but it's not true. You look at the Mishnah Berurah, he says, v'loi mikri takef. What did Makar from this? The Darkei Moshe. Darkei Moshe was the Ramah. Im shah hilachav beis amma, shuv loi mikri tekifa. No one says it's the halachic hefsek that passes on netila. The only thing is, you were mafsik and you lost the takeif. So in the worst scenario, even though he spoke out and he lost the skula, he did not pass the netila. So how could you go and wash over with the bracha? And they want to wash over, it's fine. But you can't make a bracha. Someone said, no, I'm going to scratch my hair, touch my shoes, and make a new netila and a new bracha. What you're doing is being goyim bracha she'ein tzricha. You don't need a new netila. So me'ikad din l'chayr, it's pashit that he does not have to wash over. I found the Rishonim, the Rabbi in Siman Kuf Nun Dalid. If he spoke out, you don't need a new netila. The Mishtabura in Kuf Samach Vav Sif Katan Vav, quoting El Yerabah Prima Godim, says unless there was a hesech hadas, you don't have to. The netila is not possible. The Kitzur Shulchan Aruch Mem Aleph Beis also says it. He says, try not to make a pause because you're losing the tkifus. But if he spoke out, the netila is not possible. Now, I'm not being mazalzo in the zehiras of talking. The Mishnah writes twice. Kuf samachei zayin lo yadaber afilu sichim uetes. And again, Kuf samach vav beis lo yadaber netayim afilu sichim uetes. The minig Yisrael is not to talk, avada. But to go and say, I'm going to wash over with a bracha is wrong. Now, Lamaisa, if someone spoke and got so involved in his dibur, he was Masiach Das? No. But I did see the Chazon Ish, in the end of Siman Chav Dalid, he seems to say that if someone spoke out, maybe we look at it like a Safek Hesach Hadas. Maybe. So al Safek, you can wash over. But no one says to make another bracha. The Chazon Ish seemed to acknowledge the minig of washing over. The Betzina Rav Chelekei Mem Dalet Gimel also says that really you don't have to wash over, but Lamaisa the minig is to wash over. But again, to wash over is not a chiyuv. If you really want to wash over, fine, but chas v'shalom to make another bracha. Rav Moshe has a big chiddush, I must tell you, in Archaim Beis Mem Dalet. It seems that there was a certain organization that when they made a banquet, they had a very modern minig that between the Til Sedayim and Hamotzi, the rabbi got up and made a whole speech thanking Hashem for this and for that. So Moshe said, that's a minig muzar, that what do you bring in Numan Hagam to Klal Yisrael? Between the Til Sedayim and Hamotzi, you're talking. He says you have to wash over. If you do that, it's wrong. It's keneged the minig Yisrael. You have to wash over with a bracha. Now, le'zechisi lahavin, that how could you make another bracha? Maybe Rav Moshe felt that this whole procedure, this whole ceremony, is hesach hadas. Or maybe he wanted to just to highlight that it's wrong and a pasal netila. But again, unless there was a hesach hadas, there would not be a nuchi in netila. Now, this is only between the Til Sedayim and Hamotzi. If someone spoke out after he washed, before he made the bracha on Til Sedayim, that's the pain of the Noid of Yehuda. And the Yehuda writes, Beferish, you have to wash over, because you can't make a bracha the way you are now. Now, Lamaisa, this also explains if you're waiting for the family to come to make a Hamotzi, and you notice there's no salt on the table, or the knife is not there, La Locha, you're allowed to talk out and say, bring salt, bring a knife. Varaya, it's a Beferish Gemara, nothing less. The Gemara Brachas Daf Mem, Amar Aleph, Shulchan Aruch Kuf Samach Zayin Vav, after Hamotzi, before you ate, which is much worse, you made a Hamotzi, there's no salt, you're allowed to talk out and say, bring salt. So Madach, you're allowed to talk out between a bracha and Hamotzi and eating, Kolshkein in this sort of a parva area of netila and Hamotzi. Now, Avada, like we do regarding all of halacha, we try to be more careful. And if you need the salt, better than calling out, bring salt, get up and get the salt. Or motion, people chap motions very well. That's a cloud we're going to see as we proceed. Even if it's muta to be mafsik, better do it without verbally communicating. So Lamaisa, if you do need salt, fine. You could say Havi Melech. Better would be just a motion like salt, and that's good. Now this applies to everything. Whenever you could avoid talking or being mafsik, if just a motion would suffice, avada, that's better. One thing I would say, I think it's kedai to mention this, we do things right because we're bali halacha, especially when there's a matan schor b'tzida, there's a skula. When a person is sitting with a family, as we'll see, it's challenging to make a moitzi right away. It's part of the seudah habriya. For some reason, it just doesn't go. But when you're eating at, let's say, in the office, so you're eating at home alone, with a little bit attention, you could really be yaitza, take a netila bracha, even within 16 seconds. But there has to be chachamim b'roishay. And I'll just describe it briefly. Before you wash, it's kedai to see if there's a towel. Because sometimes after you wash, there's no towel. You have to look around for a towel. So you're spending time. If you're in a place with paper towels, pull out the paper towel. Sometimes it doesn't come out. Or sometimes 20 of them come out, fall on top of you, and you have to be busy picking it up. So again, you're losing time. Have the paper towel ready. Wash like a halacha. Make the bracha right away. Like the halacha is right after you wash, before you dry your hands, make the bracha. Then dry your hands, and that you don't have to rush because that's part of the netila. Then you make a moitzi right away. Now, of course, you have to make sure before you wash that the bread is on the table, the sandwich is open, and there's salt on the table, and there's no one sitting in your seat. But if you prepare the table and the washing area, you could very easily do take of netila bracha. Besides doing halacha, the ratzon Hashem, there's also a school of ein asat mekatrik b'oisei seudah. Now, this leads us to the next question that's extremely common. Let's say in some homes we'll soon see the Rosh Habayis washes first. Some homes washes last, some first. Let's say you wash first. And everybody comes in and they make a bracha. Or from the kitchen you hear the bracha. Do you answer amein in between your netilas yadayim and your hamotzi? As you finish washing, you're waiting for hamotzi, and you hear a half a dozen of brachas. Do you answer amein? So this doesn't sound so pashut, because if I made my hamotzi, and before I ate, I hear someone making a bracha, I'm definitely not allowed to say amein. Some say it's a hefsek even. But certainly I don't say amein. So why all of a sudden here, why should I answer amein? But obviously for us today, not only allowed to, but you should. Why? Because really, it's not really a hefsek. It's only a lack of takef. But this is part of takef. To say amein, the Shulchan Aruch Reish Tezvav Bey says it's a chiyuv to answer amein, and that's why, to my knowledge, no one says differently. I saw first the Kitzah Mem Aleph Beis Kafachayim writes about it through Pashit that avada you're allowed to answer amein after netilas yadayim. The Ber Moshe says this, or Latzian says this. Now it's Pashit also not to say Baruch Hu Baruch Shmoi, because that's not a chiyuv. But avada you could answer amein. So that's sometimes a nechama when you're waiting till the children finally wash. At least if you hear them making a bracha, you could answer amein. So that's a little bit of nechama in the long wait. Now, my question only was, if you say amein, it's great, but you're giving up takef, because you have the amein in between. So stay true with that. First of all, and if you are giving up takef, an amein is a bigger skula, maybe. Also, maybe one word, amein, is not a steer to takef. It's still just one word. But no doubt about it, you're allowed to, and you probably should answer amein. Someone asked me, I couldn't figure out the question. Between the Yadayim and Hamotzi, could he answer Kedusha? I said, how do you manage that? So he said, Pasha, he davened mincha with the first minyan Shabbos afternoon, and he's about to make a Hamotzi, and the second minyan is saying Kedusha. There's a later minyan for mincha. Okay, whatever the case is. But the answer is Pasha. If you're allowed to say amein, Kolshke and Kedusha, which is a deraisa. Now, Kedusha is a little longer, but it makes no chiluk. Once we say it's not really a hefsek, it's a question of takif, then saying Kedusha is definitely a greater ma'ila. La halacha, I'm not saying la ma'isa, but la halacha. If you're sitting by the table, waiting to make a moitzi, and in walks a guest, he goes, oh, shalom aleichem. La halacha, you should be allowed to answer. Ma'adich allowed to be meishiv shalom, in between birchas krishma, kolshkein here. But it's not done. Don't be the first to do it. Probably this is based on the famous Yesod Mishnah in Samach Vav Beis quoting Sefer Chinuch, that in his times already, people don't get insulted if you don't recognize them. So as meishiv shalom is no longer negay in the times of the Chinuch, because people know that you don't necessarily have to respond. I'm afraid to say this, but today people walk by in the street, no one says hello, goodbye. So maybe the whole thing of meishiv shalom or greeting someone no longer applies. So if someone walks in, give him a very big, broad smile, and call it smoisei temarna, that I'd love to, happy to have you, and ein meirais kashem sheychareach. But let's keep away the hefsek. But if someone spoke out, avad, there's no problem. I told the bachim, if your parents ask you a question and they want to answer now, then you're allowed to answer. Keep it up, it's still chamur sheba chamurais. So if you can't wait after Hamotzi, at that point, that deed would be okay. The next question is quite challenging, and that is when you have, Baruch Hashem, a big family, Shabbos, Yom Tiv, grandchildren, and there's a long wait. What are you supposed to do? So I always say the best thing to do, I think I heard this from the Ger Rebbe, he was once waiting for his Rebbetzin, and someone says, was lernt man jetzt? He says, man lernt Geduld. So that's a good idea to learn Geduld, and sometimes you need Chazara. But let's say you learned Geduld, or you're learning Geduld. What else could you do? So I'm going to ask you a simple question, which I don't know the answer, but let's see. Avad will say, what do you mean? Yid's never bored. You could take out a sefer. You could look up a nice word on the parsha. Maybe, believe it or not, learning would be also Hefsek Hadas. Pam once told me he went to visit one of the Gedolei Rabbanim in Brownsville in those days, Moshe B'Yam and Tomashava, a Goy Noilam, and he went to visit him Shmini Atzeres. He says, I had an interesting story on Yom Kippur. It seems he was very sick, and Doc said he must eat. Can't fast the whole day. But he could eat, he could wait till Chatzos, have a half a day, and then he must eat pachas. Okay, so it came in the afternoon, and he realized he has to eat. So, before he ate, he decided he had a shayla, because he's going to make a bracha on the food, then he's going to space it out to make it a separate achila. So maybe, on the second achila, he has to make a new bracha, because he wanted to separate from the first. But then again, he knows he's eating. So he thought of a svara, he looked up a Gemara, he looked up a Rav, he took out a Shulchan Aruch. By the time he finished the psak, it was after Yom Kippur. So that's Hefsek Hadas. Now, the shaila is, and I mean it seriously, if you get into a vort, you get into a sugya, maybe it's Hefsek Hadas, which is the worst problem. Now I'm going to read you a Taisus, and you tell me what you think. Taisus is sending us in a direction, I'm not sure which direction. Taisus in Brachas Daf Mem, which is quoted halacha in Shulchan Aruch Kuf Samach Zayin Hey. Rabbeinu Menachem says, why are we so medactic to always have salt on the table by a seudah? Because since people are sitting around waiting to make Hamotzi until everybody comes, and nobody is learning, so the Satan is mekatrig. What is this bittul Torah? So the bris melech protects us. So you hear what Tais is assuming? That we're waiting and doing nothing. Why didn't you take out a safe? Why don't you think Torah? Maybe taka, that learning is also Hefsek Hadas. However, I saw a Marshal. Marshal is a classic tshuva, very yisodistic vowel sugya, Siman Lamed Daled. He first says, even though takev is not a real hefsek, not a issa, but you should be very makbid and you should do it. But, he says, if someone asks you a shayla in halacha, and you don't answer him verbally between Tazdaim and Hamotzi, Ovain hu biyodai. Because since Lamais, it's only a hidden not to talk, and now we're talking about Torah, that's life itself. How do you have the chutzpah not to talk Torah to someone else? It's only a question of hidur. And then he says, and not only is it muta, but it's muta because it's tzorech seudah. Because shulchan she'ein oiman alav divrei Torah is zivchei meisim. And then he says more than that. Since Tosfos says in Brachas Daf Mem that if you don't learn by the table, it's a sakon and you need melech. So when someone comes your way between Tadaim and Hamotzi and he asks you a shayla, you're mechuyev to answer because it's considered tzorech seudah. So the same Tosfos that we thought is a raya not allowed to learn, the Marshal holds you're mechuyev to learn, even verbally, and he had two svars why it's tzorech seudah. And he includes emphatically that even without a shayla, you're allowed to learn and don't worry. So the Mashal definitely holds, if you instead of getting angry and you already learned Gedult many times, take out a Gemara and start learning Bipeh. The Magen Avram, Sif Cotton Bays, El Yerabba, the Yaibitz and the Sid, the Mishtibur, the Achashulchan, all say Avadin allowed to learn B'dibur. But no one addresses this simple question, can you think Torah? Can you take out a sefer and learn without saying the words, which is no more than here? So to me the question is, if it's takamutta, what was Tosfos' serious problem of Bittul Torah? So to say they were masmidim like us, maybe Tosfos held that if you learn verbally, you could learn. Thinking is not easy. Maybe some people wouldn't learn. But I was thinking, maybe the whole question is not really so challenging. You know, when someone learns, let's talk about Reb Chaim Briska. So you do Reb Chaim Briska's Iyun was legend. They say his veins were bursting. He would think Torah for 5 hours straight. Right? Now, did he wash his hands every 15 minutes? Because if he's Mesiach Das, maybe he scratched his hair and touched the shoe. Teretz says, no. When you learn, like I like to say this, it's Chaim Sheyesh Be'Abbas Torah Be'Yiras Shamayim. When you're learning with Al Pi Halacha. You don't scratch your hand, and if you want to get into the learning, but there's an awareness, don't touch what you're not supposed to. So why can we say, even though learning needs Iyun, who said there's Hesek Hadas and you're going to touch your shoes? When you learn like a Yid learns. So maybe the whole problem doesn't really exist. Now, we don't talk because we don't talk. But why can't we understand that thinking Torah, or who I did looking into a sefer that's no more than hearer, the chayr is mutter. So it's somewhere in between. To verbalize the words is machlokes, marshal, and magen Avram. But to think Torah, to look into a sefer, I can't believe that it should be a problem. No. If you hold it's a problem, you know it comes out that between the netila and hamotzi is worse than Tisha B'av. Tisha B'av, you're allowed to learn, you're mechuyev to learn Dvar Maroyim. Avelis, you're mechuyev to learn Dvar Maroyim. Now, you can't. And the funny thing is, it's not even a din of Hefsek, a din of Takev, so it's unthinkable. But I will tell you, I found in a Choshev Sefer, Hilchos Yoyim B'Yoyim, Rav Moshe Matkakab, 3 times in the Sefer, Amud Pei Aleph, and Amud Pei Tes, he seems to say, even thinking Torah, looking into a Sefer should not be done because of the concern of Hesek Hadas. Okay, I don't think it's muchach at all, but definitely we could say that misafik, you're allowed to learn. You want to be machmir in takev. So I'll quote what one of the Gedolim once said, Hasmoda is the gresta frumkeit. Some people like to find, a mitzvah to eat and a ver to learn. That's their frumkeit, you have to eat again, the safik shir. Lamais hasmoda is the gresta frumkeit. Next question that also happens quite often. A person went to the bathroom, and now he has to wash. What's the procedure? So the emes is, this is really siman kuf samachay, a whole siman, and basically the right way to do it is, although many people are makbid to wash vashiyot with a keli 3 times, but it's not really a chiyuv. Okay, it's not a chiyuv. So in this case, you have no choice but to wash without a keli, say ashiyotza, and then wash la halacha with a keli. Why not wash the first time with a keli, say ashiyotza, and wash again, and then til sedayim? There it says, once you wash the first time, you were yaitza. So you can't wash again and make a bracha on the second netila. I touch your shoes, scratch your hair, go to bracha shenetzvicha. So that's why the most accepted minig is to wash without a keli, make ashiyotza, and then you have mechuyev to wash with a keli, and you make a bracha gedas gudim. Some people, especially the Heilige Chazon was very sensitive to ever wash without a keli. So what he did was, he would wash with a keli, properly for til sedayim, twice in each hand, however you do it. Then he made both brachas. I would ask you, what should be the order of the brachas? What's first? Ashiyotza and til sedayim. So everybody says Ashiyotza goes first. First of all, Tadir. And also, you went to the bathroom first. That Chi was Chal first. But for us today, it's wrong. Because it's a Hefsek. Better would be to make it til sedayim, so there's no Hefsek. Then what's your location? After you made the bracha til sedayim, you're in between netila and hamotzi. That's only a problem of takif. And there's a good reason for it. Well, once you're doing it, I would say do a little better. Wash once, make it til sedayim bracha, dry your hands, and then make the bracha. Because if your hands are still wet, we'll soon see, some say, it's still part of the netila. So you're getting a little involved with an issue. Better dry your hands, then you're bein til sedayim and hamotzi. It's like the mechaber, there's no problem b'chlal. Even like the hamotzi, let us say amein. you're allowed to say amein, you're allowed to say ashiyotza. That's l'chayra the right thing to do. Now, of course, people ask, why can I do the simplest thing? Wash netilas yadayim, make hamotzi, and after make ashiyotza. After hamotzi, after I swallowed. Zok the Mishnah and Sif Cotton Gimel, that's not an option. Because you make a bracha ashiyotza right after you washed your hands, you don't delay it. Next interesting question is a big tumble, because negeya every time we wash. The Magen Avram in Kuf Samavav Si Cotton Base quotes the Shloah Kaddish that a person must daven every day for his panosa. Should have mezainis. And if he should do it really before you wash. If he forgot to make that special tefillah for mezainis, for panosa, before he washed, he could do it in between netilas yadayim and hamotzi. Zok the Magen Avram, the minig ha'olam that does this shloah, is they say mizmal davar Hashem roi lo yechsa. So it comes out that really you're supposed to do it before you wash, even though it's important. But why get involved with Hefsek? But if you forgot to say it then, say it after netilas yadayim, before hamotzi. Comes again many poskim, and they say, why say it then? You're running into a Hefsek problem. It's only a question of takeif, good. But say it after hamotzi. Why punk there between the time and hamotzi? And lamaisa, the Shulchan, and the Mechas Alaz, the Munkacha in Mukar Chaim is very against the minig. If you do it once in a while is one thing, but every day to stick in this tefillah tintil and hamotzi is wrong. But lamaisa, this was the minig Magen Avram acknowledges. Why? That's very pashut. If the hatchila is supposed to avoid it, say it before you wash, or say it after hamotzi. But if you dafka want to say it before hamotzi, and you've got to say it before the netila, you'll have to say it by netila la hamotzi. And if you look in the shloah, look in the shloah, because yes, the shloah is makel to say it. He relies on the marshal. The marshal says you're allowed to even learn by netila and daim and hamotzi. So saying this tefillah is also good. So lamaisa, each person has their own minig. Many people say it before you wash, that's the way it should be. But if you forgot one time, you're allowed to say it between netilas yadayim and hamotzi. But it's a beautiful mashal, because even though it's not really a hefsek, we try to avoid a lechatchila. Say it before you wash or after hamotzi. It's a true story. Someone always made kiddush in shul every Shabbos. One Shabbos he was busy, I don't know what happened. Lamaisa, he did not make kiddush. But he's so used to coming home after kiddush, came home and he washed. And before he made a mitzi, his child motioned him very respectfully, like, you didn't make kiddush. I mean, it took time from the chap what the child meant. So his location was he had already washed, sitting by the table, and did not yet make kiddush. So what would you suggest he does? No problem. Get a becha, get wine, and make kiddush right then and there. In between the seudah and hamotzi, you're making kiddush? Teretz is, it's a tzoרך for the achila. You can't eat without it. I don't think I'm telling you a chiddush when I tell you that the Ramah in Reish Ayin Aleph Sif Yud Dalid says the minig pash b'chol Medina, and that's the minig of the German Jewry Ad Hayoim, that even Friday night you first make a netilas yadayim, then you make the full kiddush, drink the wine, and then you make a hamotzi. The assumption is, since you can't eat without kiddush, a kiddush is not a hefsek. So even though most of us don't do that, but in this challenging situation, you have no choice. You can't eat without kiddush. So you'll make kiddush and hamotzi, and afterwards you want to make a shechiyanu. The first time we ever did such a thing, but it's not really a problem. Next question, interesting question, is lamaisa when you're waiting, and the question is, what else can be done while you're waiting? So let me explain. Lamaisa, as I told you, that even the Ramah that holds you can't talk, it's only a mile of takeif. But the Ramah himself says that it's not a hefsek. So with that in mind, I think we can understand what the Ramah then says. The Ramah says if you wait more than chav beis amma, it's a hefsek. But the Ramah really means you lost the takeif. Because that's the amount, he proves it based on the toises, that you can't allow more than chav beis amma to pass. Now this is extremely troubling when you realize that it's between 12 and 16 seconds, if you make the cheshbon of a mil, 18 or 24 minutes, I don't want to get into that now, but it's probably no more than 16 seconds. Now, if you have, for every child, it takes 16 seconds to wash. What does the Ra mean? How are you supposed to do that? So the answer is very pashut, that if you have children and you're not putting them up for adoption, you're not mechuyev to, right? So what do? You wait for them. And it's a tzorech seudah. So either pshat is, it's not a chstira to take it, or what could you do? Shalom bayis is more important. But I found Rishonim, the Mashal, the Ritva, in Hilchas Brachas, Vav Chaf Aleph, and the Shita in Brachas Mem Beis, both say waiting is not a problem. I mean, it can't be, because what are you supposed to do? The Rav says in Kuf Samach Vav Aleph, and the Mishnah Berurah says, the Ikadint Kifa is only as a heros. And if you have to wait. Now, why do I say this? Because many people get nervous. They try to keep halacha, and the children are just, procrastinating. So let me tell you, I worked in this for many years, and it hasn't helped. This seems to be part of the seudah habriya. You can't get children, just to wash right away. Now, you might say, I'm going to wash first, and they're going to see me waiting, and they'll feel bad. Doesn't usually work. I'll wash last and chase them all to wash. Also doesn't always work. So you might as well just say, I'm going to learn Gedult, and it's not a Hefsek. But I found really beautiful, the Poskim say that it could even be, we'll soon prove this, that if what you have to wait is not a stira to take if. Because what can you do? That's part of the netila. So basically, it's kedai not to get aggravated, wait, gesundheit. The next question is it an eitzah to trim some of the time, waiting of time, to wash in other rooms or other floors? You're at home. So, big family, Yom Tov's coming. Maybe some go upstairs, some go to the basement, wherever there's a sink. Or more commonly in a camp, if you want your B'nai Torah, you can't wash in as much as they have 10, 12 sinks, not enough. Could you go to your bunkhouse, to your bungalow? So not only is it halicha, but it's shini makayim. It's bayis labayis. Sukkah, you wash in the house and eat in the sukkah. Now some people have the sukkah in their porch, wonderful. And at shul, what do? The shul doesn't have a porch. It's outside, it's in the street, whatever it is. Is there a problem of shini makayim halicha in this context? So the Magen Avram, in the end of Siman Kuf Samach Vav, our Siman, he says, even mepina lepina is a problem like it is in Hilchas Brachas. V'chein ikka d'leigar midiba ba'alma. Magen Avram definitely is concerned about a problem. Now, which problem is he concerned about? If you look in Levush Yisrod, he's worrying about halicha. Halicha is not takef. You see, takef is a very objective word. Takef means right away. If you're going someplace, it's not right away. The Rav Shulchan Aruch, the Megadim learn in the Magen Avram, the problem is not halicha, shini makayim. You're going mibayis labayis. What's the nafkamina? I'll tell you a beautiful nafkamina. Let's say you're in a big, huge chasana hall, an ulam, I call it. The sink is on the other side of the big room. But right outside of this room, there's a small room that has a sink. Which is the better option? If you walk the other side of the hall, it's a long halicha, but it's the same cheder. The other room is a different cheder. So it's totally in these two reasons. But be that as it may, we come back to the same yisoid. Zok T'Sharet Tzion in Kuf Samach Zayin Sivkot Chav Ches. Avadi should make halicha before you make hamotzi. But if there's no other choice, it's part of the netila. So that means in a shul, sukkah, your own sukkah, in a camp, in a home, if this will trim the waiting time, people washing in other rooms, then it's not a problem of takef. That's your takef, to do it as quick as possible. What I found beautiful, the Shevet HaLevi in Chelik Aleph Siman Reish Hey, he says, and I'll use the English word, but this is what he really means to say. He says, takef does not mean immediately, because it's almost not shaykh. Takef is, we say in English, ASAP, as soon as possible. If you're doing it as soon as you can, that's, Eina Kadosh Baruch Hu Baba Chunya, like the term Lachi Asharis. So that's what I think he means to make that differentiation. But the raya he brings was an einfal. The Trumas Adeshen, one of the Kadmoinim, in Tshuva Reish Chaf Aleph, talks about a totally different context. The halach is that before a Rav makes chalitza on a couple, you have to be miyachad the makom. and you can't do it in a week in advance, you have to do it the night before the chalitza is done. Let's say chalitza is being done on Sunday, so the Trumas says you can't make the Yichud Makayim on Shabbos. He has a problem of binyan, whatever it is. So the Trumas says, why? Because since the mice you can't do it on Shabbos, this would still be considered takev, and it's not muflig. The problem is muflig. It's not muflig because you did it the best you can. So he seems to say that if you do the best you can, ASAP, like they say, is what the Ratzon Hashem is. Not necessarily immediately, because you can't do immediately when you have a few children. If you want to go to another room, same thing. That's the best way of doing it. But we could do a little better. And that is, to make a long story short, every mitzvah, we make the bracha oivel asiyasam before the mitzvah takes place. Netilas yadayim is the exception. We make the bracha after we wash, because our hands are tamei. But we do make oivel asiyasam. We wash, and then make the bracha. So the seudah dava is, the drying is part of the netila, because if you eat without drying is wrong. So therefore, the drying is part of the netila. Even though today we use the revius, so technically there's no chiyuv netila out lechem tamei, but zok the marshal, it's mius, it's not nice to eat with wet hands. So at the end of the day, even today, netila is part of the niguv is part of the netila. Zog the Einig Yamtiv in Simon Yud Ches, the Maimon Mordechai says it, Chazon Ish Chav Ches Lamed, and many poskim, and no one disagrees. Whenever you have to have a sort of a break in between Tazdaim and Hamotzi, the best thing would be to wash, okay, then make the bracha right away, and then either start drying or dry slowly. Let's say you're waiting for your family, so you sit down by the table with a paper towel or a towel, whatever it is, dry your hands slowly. And if lemaisa, when you finish, that's when the clock starts to tick. The take-it begins after you dry. Now he's really talking about if you're washing in the house and you're eating in the sukkah. So he says, wash in the house, make the bracha, don't dry yet, walk out with wet hands. Of course, if it's not chav lachem, don't walk on someone's floor and the drip is in on people trip. You have to do it properly with derech eretz. But this would extend the netila. So whenever a person has to wash in one place and make a moitzi in another place, in shul, in his own house, in a camp, in a bunker house, all that thing, so it's mutter to make that halicha, but better would be you wash, make the bracha, take a netila bracha, then go with wet hands to your seat, dry it, and then make a moitzi. This works in all these situations. Now of course, the bracha should be said right away, because the bracha is always said right after netila, even though you're extending the netila, but the bracha is said, take of the netila bracha. People sometimes they prepare lunch, let's say they're home alone, they either want to eat in their office or study, so they prepare the sandwich in the kitchen and they bring it upstairs whenever they're going to the study or the office. So it's kedai to do things properly. If there's a sink upstairs, then wash upstairs, and you can be ready to take it. Wash downstairs, run upstairs. If there's no reason to be soymach on this kula, best would be wash upstairs. Now, if there's no sink, so probably the best thing would be wash downstairs and make a moitzi downstairs. You're eating, you're going mecheda lecheda, but that helps the cheda lecheda. But whenever we could do the right take of netila bracha, avada, that's a much better option. Now, sukkah also, theoretically, you could wash in the house and, of course, make the moitzi in the sukkah. If it's possible, I'm not saying it always is, it's definitely better to bring out a bucket of water, and especially on Chalamoid, not on Shabbos Yom Tov, of course, but on Chalamoid, wash over the grass. Because this way you have taken the netila bracha. Why rely on the kula of washing in the house and making a moitzi in the sukkah? If you could wash outdoors, this is better. But again, Yom Tov, that we don't do it, Shabbos Yom Tov, the problem of washing on grass, or something is not shy. But at least when we could do the take of the netila bracha, that would be the best thing. Now the last group of questions is probably the most challenging, because it's the most negeya. I'm waiting patiently, and I'm learning gedult also. While I'm waiting, can I just take a little bit chrein, or a dip, or set the table a little better, or do something, activity by the table? So you're wondering, why not? Take if you don't have any help because you're waiting, right? So, but here the question is, this is a Maisa. And for us today, we're much more sensitive. Because this brings us back to where we began with. The Gemara in Brachas Nun Beis Amud Beis says, all agree, take of netila seudah, that mezigas hakois disturbs the takeif. Now, I must say, to be honest, meziga does not mean pouring a cup of soda. Meziga means mixing. Toises and Psachim, Kuv Vav Amud Beis, Taka wonders, why is meziga such a hesech hadas? So Toises, I quote, As limzeg hakois bechamen benetayim, the tzorach digduk shlo yechzar b'shlo yoisir, vavi hesech hadas tvei, and that is a problem of hesech hadas. It wasn't just pouring a cup of soda while you're waiting to make hamotzi. It was making, you became a winemaker, you mixed it the proper ratio, and you didn't ruin it. Zok the kitza in Memalav Beis, that if you're waiting, bilvad shelo yasa eza ma'isa b'netayim, oy shehifle b'dvarim, the oz havi hesech hadas b'tzorach netila shenis. So it's very hard to give a klal. What's considered a hesech hadas in a ma'isa? But the given is, ma'isa is the worst shaila. You know why? Because dibor, waiting, halicha, is not really a hefsek. The only potential poisel of the netila is hesech hadas. And the Chazon Ish writes in two places. I told you, end of Chavdal, also Chavhei, Simon Chavhei, that misafik, we should maybe treat every ma'isa as a potential hesech hadas. So lemaisa, I would say that you have to be careful. To do a ma'isa kal, maybe takis mutter, but why take a chance? If you're walking in after you wash from the kitchen to the dining room and you bring out a plate to help your wife or parent, so that's probably a mitzvah going anyhow. But to do something, it's hard to give a cloud. I want to read to you what the Ben Ish Chai writes in the Sefer, and Emor Ois Beis. The Ben Ish Chai did not live 1,000 years ago, okay? But listen what he says. Afilu eisik koldu im tzorach ledagdig boy nimtzo masiach daitoi. Therefore, don't look at a coin to see if it's legitimate or not, if it's real. Or lirais b'moirish shois ladas kama hasho. Now, look at the time. Now, someone said he's talking about a sundial. I don't know. He says moirish shois. He doesn't say sundial. He didn't live 1,000 years ago. When I saw this, I fell back. He's talking about looking at the time. So maybe it wasn't as accurate as our time. But Lamaisa, that's what he says. So again, the Chazon Ish writes a lashon that the het nafal b'bira fell to the wayside is irrelevant because you don't know. Maybe it's hesech hadas. So it's hard to give a klal if someone asks you to put, motion to pass something, but I can't say it's so pashit to do a ma'isa. The Kafachayim in Sifkot and Gimel writes, whatever has to be done, do before you wash. And he gives an interesting mashal. Times of the Gemara, before they ate, they opened a belt. It's a Mishnah, right? I guess when they ate, they wanted to, grow, steig, expand, and they had to leave room. He says, do that before you wash. It's Tzoyrich Gomer for the seudah, but try to avoid every hefsek. So it's really very hard to give a klal what's considered hesech hadas. I did tell someone, he always gets nervous, you know what, for you, I think it's better to do something between the time and hamotzi. You could take the chrein, this way you won't get too angry. If you get angry, angry is definitely much worse. But in Allah, I think it's better off not to do anything and just wait patiently. Now, when you have to wait, is there any way of trimming the time? So this I must tell you, the Mishnah Berurah in Siman Kuf Samachay says, if you have a big family, so it might be kedai to give out a few extra lechem mishnah and let each family make their own, because till everybody comes is a long hefsek. Now, even though it's not really a hefsek, some people prefer making roiv majas melech. So then you wait patiently. Again, it's not immediately; it's ASAP. But if you want, make smaller, kvutzos, and each make their own hamotzi. But I'll tell you, l'char is an eitzah, but I can't say it's kedai to implement it because it might disturb the shalom bayis a little bit. But this is a true story. Someone, after her kiddush, he decided he can't be eitzah with his father's hamotzis. He had to go out to the bathroom for a second, so he ran out to the bathroom, and he came back just then in time to hear his father making hamotzi. So his hands were clean, and he decided, let me chap hamotzi. He didn't want to get another lechem mishnah. So he sat down at a table, and he heard the entire hamotzi mitchil of atzoif. Then he chap, what did I do? I didn't wash yet. So what's his location? He heard hamotzi, he was mechaven lotzei, the father had to give a kavanah to hamotzi him, but he didn't yet wash yet. What does he do? To wash over? Makes no sense. I mean, he has to wash, not wash over. Can he just cancel the bracha? But you said you were yoitz with it. You can't just cancel the bracha. So guess what? This is a mechaba. Kuf samach zayin, siv zayin. The mechaba says this very shaila, but even more of a chiddush. Someone is making a hamotzi and someone's about to wash. No problem. Stop washing. Don't start washing. Actually, listen to hamotzi and then wash and make a bracha. What are you doing? In the middle of between hamotzi and the achila, you're washing. What's a simple teretz? The tzorych. So the bracha hamotzi is chal. Now you can't eat, so you have to wash. Wash is not a hefsek. Just like for Medina's halalu, they made kiddush after they washed, right? Fine. Now, could you make a bracha? Maybe don't make a bracha. Maybe he said don't make a bracha and make a hamotzi right away. So stay though. First of all, if you're mechuyev to make a bracha, what do you mean don't make a bracha? I make them till sedayim after you make after you eat the challah. It's too late. Once you made a hamotzi, you can't wait till sedayim. So the chayra, this is an eitzah. If someone heard a hamotzi before he washed, and he was yoitz to hamotzi, he could keep the hamotzi in the back of his mind, wash, make a bracha till sedayim, dry your hands, sit down, and eat from the challah, and you yoitz to the bracha and lechem mishnah, if it's Shabbos. So the chayra, I was thinking maybe you could split up the family. The pre-hamotzi wash first, and then the other group will listen to making the bracha, okay, and then they'll wash. The only problem I have with that is that lechatchila we shouldn't do this. See, the whole heta of this trick, the kuf samach zayin is b'di'evet. Once you made a hamotzi, so how you can't just ignore the hamotzi. You have to do something. But lechatchila, I'm not sure that's correct. To make such a system, half a wash now, half a wash afterwards, the chayr doesn't seem to be correct. Plus the shalom bayis, we're not going to be too good. How are you going to divide? Mi yichya, mi lo yichya, who's washing first, washing afterwards? It was never done. But one thing I will say, if a child comes in late and didn't wash it and wants to be yoitz to hamotzi, avada you could. When regarding mayim achronim, I should mention, Kuf Peyalav says don't be mafsik when you stop between mayim achronim and benching. And the shear is chav beis amma. Many people do not wash by the sink; they dafka wash by the table in the keli, of course, to have takef. But I should mention this: all the gedolei achronim quote this story. Someone came to the Arizal, says, "I have a terrible shoulder problem." I don't know why they went to the Arizal. He wasn't a chiropractor. He says, "Tell me your seudah yoyim." He says, "Well, I eat a seudah, and then I wash my mechayim, then I learn mishnayos, and then I bench." He goes, "Oh, that's your problem, because you learn mishnayos is wonderful, but that's in between my mechayim and benching. So you ruined the takef and the netila bracha of the Gemara and brachas mem beis. So if you mix up takef, what do you have? Kasef." And sure enough, his shoulder pain went away. I said this in the yeshiva, and someone swore to me, in his family the same thing happened. And he's not from that result, but he stopped doing that minig. And last but not least, something to think about, because there's no clear achra, when l'maisi you're waiting for the whole family, you as the Rosh Habayis, who washes first? Should you wash first because you're the oldest and the father of the family, grandfather? Or to minimize the long wait, you should wash last? So this is 2 days in Shulchan Aruch Kuf Samachei Beis. Pashit, the Gadol washes first. The Rosh used to wash last to minimize Hefsek. And Lamaisa, there's no Achra. I saw in the Archas Rabbeinu Aleph Kuf Yud Beis, the Chazon Ish always washed first. The Steipler always washed last. But probably the best eitzah would be, if the father gets angry waiting for his children, getting angry is never a good idea on Shabbos or Yom Tov, let him wash last, let him learn, and say all the ameins, and then Shalom Al Yisrael with the tug to you all.
Shame, I'd like to give a big yashikar to Smith. For today's shir, I would like to have the seudah of sponsoring a shir. Call Irgun Shir Torah 718-851-8651 or email ist@yeshiva.com. At this point, I'd like to invite the Olam to Bez Hashem Wednesday night to make chasana for my daughter and Vision Tzahol. I'd like to invite the Olam to Bez Hashem share simchas together. Chanan ben Akashim Moshe Boch Lazakis is Israel figure him to Mr. Shanem ala Noy Chofetz and Sidka Yagdol Torah V'Yadeh.
One day, or it's a girl? As I'm asking, who sits?
Nee, zoiets waar ik hoor.
Simchas.
Simcha.
Last go. You know what? Give me a second. Don't go away.
Okay, everybody, so let's try not to make too big a hefsek between the sikkim of today's shish.
Okay, just Rabbi, so we learned today, I think there's a lot of chadushim, at least for myself, that between the netilas and hamotzi, mi'ikid din, all agree is not hefsek. It's not the conventional hefsek. Because the Machabashita, it's not even such a big deal as far as takev is concerned. The Ramah says there is a din of takev, but it seems that all agree that takev is a maila, based on a Yishalmi, it's a skula, but there's no real problem of hefsek between the netilas and hamotzi, because like we saw from the sugya, it's two different mitzvahs. Happens to be the netila shadayim is machshir the achila, but lamaisa it's not a actual one package that would be a real hefsek. Hesek hadas is the real problem because that passes the netila, and you have to wash over. All agree we try hard to do kalacha and take a netila bracha, and if you could wash and get everything ready by the seudah, you can make a hamotzi within 16 seconds after the netila. That's a wonderful skula and a wonderful compliance of halacha. If someone spoke out between the daim and hamotzi after he made the bracha, it's a chumrah ba'alma to wash over, but zicha, no bracha should be said. Between the daim and the bracha, or between hamotzi and the achila, then even one word would be a hefsek. That's pashut. But this is uniqueness of today's sugya that location between Netilas Yadayim and Hamotzi is not a real hefsek. When there's a Tzorych bracha, you're allowed to talk even bein bracha lachila, kolshkein between Netilas Yadayim and Hamotzi, but if it could be avoided, one should avoid it. You're allowed to say amein as you're waiting to say Hamotzi, because amein is a mitzvah and it's not a problem of a lot of chsaron of takev. If it's necessary to be meishav shalom or talk to a parent, dibur, and that situation would be mutter. Learning behirer umitoch hasefer l'choyer is mutter. Just don't be masiach das. Learn with avas haTorah v'yiras shamayim. If you go to the basic kisi for a seudah, then either better would be to wash without a keli ashiyotza and then wash again kedin. Some people wash once, but the seudah should be you wash your hands, you make a bracha netilas yadayim, dry the hands, and then make ashiyotza. Those that say it's tefillah for their mezainis, for their panasa, should do it either before the netila or after achila, but the shlah is mekel to say it between Tzadayim and hamotzi. If someone forgot to make kiddush by day, even at night, if it's negayah, and he already washed, let him make kiddush, and then, of course, make hamotzi lechem and aretz. Usually, as we said, takev means as soon as possible, not immediately, because it's almost never shaykh. Getting nervous is not the right thing to do. If necessary, even halicha, shinui makayim, a different building is okay. The eighth is to go with hands that are still wet, dry them, and make the bracha right away after washing. Go with wet hands to your location. And again, you have ASAP, even though you don't have immediately. The minig rather used to have small pieces of hamotzi by the sink that they meant well, but there's a lot of problems. First of all, you're supposed to make a bracha on a shalom, you're supposed to dip it into salt. The bracha standing is not preferable, and once you're standing, so the bracha becomes like tefillas haderech as you're going. So the minig was discontinued for a good reason. You make a bracha by your seat on a shalom with salt, kedas ukadin. The eating outdoors, if you go wash outdoors, avad is better, if it's not Shabbos or Yom Tiv, but if not, you wash inside and make the bracha outside. The real problem is Hefsek hadas, like we saw, mezigas hakos, any real type of a hefsek, of maisa, and we said also washing first or last is different than hagim, but technically if someone wants to hear the mitzi and then wash, that would also be okay, it's not a problem. Yes, now.
Outside of the